Hey, good morning, guys, or afternoon, depending on when you're seeing this. Hey, today we're doing another day of notes, learning about the patricians and plebeians, rich and class, low class, but also we're going to talk a little bit about the Roman army. And I have a treat for you at the end. Well, you might think it's a treat. I don't know. Ha. Anyway, you'll see. So anyway, the first slide's a little different because the first slide today is comparing the rich, the patrician, to the poor, the low class. So the patricians, high class, they were the ruling class. They were born into this. You couldn't work your way up. The patricians had all the power, and so they were the ones who were allowed to be in the Senate, in the council. They held the money, the power. They owned all the land. The plebeians, on the other hand, low class people, had very little power or no power. They could vote, and that was about it. Of course, the women couldn't, but the men could. But they didn't own land. They usually owned small pieces of land. That was it. But they had no way of running for office. They couldn't really have any power or any say in the government. In fact, the plebeians weren't even allowed to marry patricians because that way they would move up in class. So if you were plebeian, you were always plebeian. Probably about 85 to 90% of the people were in this class. The rich, on the other hand, they handled all the finances in the wars. In fact, because they were in charge of the government, they sometimes purposely went out and had wars because they knew that would get them more land and unfortunately more slaves. So they owned these large farms called latifunda, and they used slaves to work the fields. They could afford the slaves, and because they had slaves doing the work, they didn't have to pay their workers, and so they just got rich. And don't think of these as like African slaves. These were slaves from any place that they conquered. Any land, their country they conquered, those people were forced into slavery. On the other hand, the plebeians were losing their farmland instead of gaining it. Most of them were out required as their duty to fight in the war. So they're out fighting, dying. They're not at home harvesting their fields. And so they're not able to make as much crops, which is hurting them a lot. And then also much of their land, right, is many of the wars are happening in their area. And so their land's getting damaged by the war. They also couldn't compete with the slave labor on farms because they didn't have slaves, or maybe they could only afford one instead of many. And so they had to do the work themselves or pay someone to do it, which they just couldn't afford. They couldn't pay off their debts, right? They couldn't pay off the loan that they had to get the little land they had. And so what happens is they might find themselves in jail, but also they have to give their land to who? To the patricians, to the people who would loan them the money in the first place. And then finally, they went to the city thinking, man, I'll just go to the city. I'll get a job. Forget this farming thing. And they get to the city and the jobs are all being taken up by the slaves as well. So you can imagine the plebeians are in a bad place. And eventually, because there's more of them, they're either going to revolt or have to protest. Here's what they were arguing. They were like, look, it's not fair. We serve in the army just like the patricians. We pay taxes just like the patricians. Okay? In fact, more of us are paying taxes and more of us are in the army because there's more of us. It's not fair that we don't have any voice. Right? Our vote doesn't even count as much as the patricians. It's just not fair. So after years and years, hundreds of years, actually 200 years of protest, where the plebeians just said, look, we're not going to fight in your wars and we're not going to work. And they stopped working and they stopped fighting. And after so many years of this, eventually the patricians had to give in, and they started off with this idea that, hey, we'll give you this thing called the Council of Plebes, where there's a body of representative plebeians, and you'll have a tribune, kind of like a representative, that you can voice your concerns to government. And then eventually they even could veto certain government decisions. So they were starting to get more power. And by 287, they even were able to pass some laws for the Romans. But this took about 200 years of protesting. Eventually what happened too is the patricians will come up with a set of laws known as the 12 Tables, which we'll learn about tomorrow, that made things more equal for the rich and the poor. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the army. Like, the reason that the Roman Republic and then eventually the Roman Empire is so powerful was really because of the army. So all male citizens that own land, patrician and plebeian, had to serve in the army for a certain amount of time. The discipline was harsh. If you were a deserter, you were put to death. Deserter is someone who tries to run away or quit the army. You just couldn't do it. They didn't tolerate being a coward. They didn't tolerate surrender. they were just a well-oiled, very well-trained unit. At first, they kind of fought like the Greeks, had these big, long spears and round shields, but then they'll move into a more rectangular shield and shorter swords. And instead of going out to war with 20 or 30,000, they would have these smaller groups of men called legions, which were 6,000 men, which could move quick and they could connect with another legion, and they just were easy to maneuver and easy to kind of keep them in line, if you will. All right, now, they were really smart rulers. And the question is, why were they so smart? Well, first of all, every time they conquered a new land, they built a military settlement there and kept the army there so that they could keep an eye on things and make sure everybody was safe. Most important also, they built roads between every town. Every time they conquered a new town, they built a road to it, and all the roads, they said, lead back to Rome. By the end of the empire, there was 50,000 miles of actual road, stone road, which means the troops could travel quickly. If there was some kind of skirmish or an enemy came and was attacking a town, they could get guys there quickly. Okay. The other thing they did, they set up this idea called the Roman Confederation, which means that when they conquered you, right, conquered a country, that country either became citizens or allies. Citizen was good because then you were getting full citizenship. You could vote, serve in the government, pretty much treated like a regular Roman soldier or citizen. This was to those countries they conquered that they trusted. But if they conquered a country and they weren't so sure about them, they would, let them live, maybe take some of them into slavery, but the rest they say, look, you're an ally. You're free to run your local affairs. You have to pay taxes, provide soldiers, but you don't get the right to vote. You don't have the same rights like that. So, all right, guys, here's the deal. Real quick, with what little time I have left, I want to have a little fun, and I want to show you what a Roman soldier might have looked like. Think about this also, that it's, Halloween's coming up, so it's always fun to dress up, right? But anyway, so here I am, Roman soldier, got my breastplate, put my helmet on, right? And let me just kind of talk through real fast the different parts of the Roman soldier. Right? Oh, right? Yes. So Roman soldier, breastplate, going to protect me in battle. I also, of course, back here a little bit, you see I have my sandals. My sandals are called the caligae. They're extremely important to me because I'm probably going to walk 20, 30, maybe 50 miles a day. And I'm wearing a lot of weight. So all my weapons and the full kit of what I'm wearing would weigh up to 80 to 90 pounds. So I got to have good feet, right? So got the breastplate to protect me, my shoes. I got my belt, which is called the beltaeus. And of course, this is where I would hold my different weapons, okay, like my sword. I also have my shield, which is called the scutum, big rectangle, right? This was made so I could push, right? Okay, I could also protect from arrows and even put it over my head. And we worked in tandem with this. Okay. Other thing is I have my sword, which is called my gladius, and it was sharp on both sides, but pointy because we didn't hack at people. We usually poked, push, poke, right, stabbing them like that. And usually had this not come across my body to pull it out like you see in the movies. It was actually like here on my right side, which I think is on your left side in the video. But anyway, so cool. Here we go. I'm a Roman soldier. I am ready for battle. I am well trained. I am the reason that the Roman Empire will be as powerful as it does, because I am feared by all of my enemies. When the Roman soldiers came, sometimes they didn't even have to go to battle because the enemy would just give up, because we were so well trained and so well equipped, and we didn't just do our own stuff. If we learned something from an enemy, some sort of weapon or some way of battle that worked, we picked it up and we did it. Okay, so we were always learning, always moving, and we fought hard. And we are really the reason the Roman Empire will last for about 1,000 years, was simply because of such a well-trained unit, the Roman army. Yes, right? All right, you guys have a great day. See ya. Peace out.